Jake Morrison had been sitting in the same chair for 3 hours. The metal was cold against his back and his legs were getting stiff. Around him, the giant council room buzzed with voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Some sounded like birds chirping. Others sounded like rocks grinding together. A few sounded almost human, but not quite. He looked at his watch. Earth time said it was nearly midnight back home. Here on the council station, time didn't mean much. The artificial lights never changed. The air always smelled like cleaning, chemicals mixed with something sweet that made his nose itch. Lisa Carter sat next to him, typing notes on her tablet. She was the military liaison, which meant she spoke for all the human soldiers scattered across the galaxy. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, as always. Even after sitting for hours, she looked ready for inspection. Behind them, Captain Ben Rodriguez shifted in his seat. Ben commanded the human fleet that kept the peace in 3 different star systems. Right now, his ships were probably stopping pirates or breaking up fights between alien governments. His crews were risking their lives while he sat in this room waiting. At the front of the room, Chairman Vex Talar raised one of his forearms. The insect-like alien was 12 feet tall and covered in shiny black shell. When he spoke, his voice echoed through hidden speakers. "We will now hear the human petition for full council membership," Vex Talar announced. Jake stood up slowly. He had given this speech 14 times before. Each time he hoped it would be different. Each time he was disappointed. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Jake began. His voice carried clearly through the room. "For 30 years, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have answered every call for help. We have solved problems that others could not solve." He gestured to a large screen that lit up behind him. Numbers and charts appeared, showing human contributions to the galaxy. Human engineers built the terraforming systems on 47 colony worlds. Human doctors created cures for diseases that killed millions. Human soldiers stopped wars that could have destroyed entire civilizations. The screen showed images of human ships patrolling trade routes, human scientists working in laboratories, human diplomats shaking hands with alien leaders. "We have shared our technology freely. We have trained your people in our methods. We have bled and died for causes that were not originally our own." Jake paused and looked around the room. Most of the aliens were not paying attention. Some were talking quietly among themselves. Others were checking their own devices. A few seemed to be sleeping. "We ask again for full membership in this council. We want voting rights equal to other founding members. We want a say in the decisions that affect all of us." The room fell quiet. Jake sat down and waited. Chairman Vex Talar's compound eyes glittered in the artificial light. "The council has reviewed your petition," he said. His tone was formal and cold. "As in previous cycles, we must decline your request." Jake felt his jaw clench. Lisa's typing stopped. Ben's chair creaked as he leaned forward. "The human species remains too aggressive for full membership privileges," Vex Talar continued. "Your methods are unpredictable. Your culture promotes individual action over group harmony. These traits make you unsuitable for equal partnership in galactic governance." Jake stood up again, but this time he was not asking for permission. "Too aggressive?" he said. His voice was louder now. "When the Zephyrian colonies were dying from atmospheric failure, who fixed their air systems? When pirates were destroying Vorton trade ships, who cleared the space lanes? When the Kraleks and Morthak were about to start a war that would have killed billions, who negotiated the peace treaty?" Vex Talar's mandibles clicked together. "Those actions prove our point. Humans always choose violence as a solution. We choose solutions that work," Jake shot back. "When diplomacy fails, when negotiations break down, when people are dying, we act. That's not aggression. That's responsibility." He picked up his tablet from the table. The motion was sharp and angry. Several aliens in the front row flinched. "For 30 years, we have been your problem solvers, your emergency response team, your military force. But we're not good enough to have an equal voice in decisions." Jake's voice carried to every corner of the vast room. "We're good enough to die for you, but not good enough to vote with you." Lisa stood up beside him. Ben followed. Other humans throughout the room began rising from their seats. "You want to know what human unpredictability looks like?" Jake asked. He tapped his tablet, and immediately every human device in the room chimed with an incoming message. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws all military, economic, and technological support from Galactic Council operations. Jake's words fell into complete silence. "We're done being your unpaid problem solvers." He looked directly at Chairman Vex Taylor. "You think we're too aggressive for membership? Fine. Figure out your own problems." Jake turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa and Ben followed him. Throughout the room, other humans were standing and moving toward the doors. Scientists, engineers, doctors, soldiers, diplomats, all of them heading for the exits. "Ambassador Morrison," Vex Taylor called out. "You cannot simply leave. There are protocols, procedures to follow." Jake stopped at the door and looked back. "Protocols? You mean like the protocol that says founding members get equal votes? Or the procedure that says 30 years of faithful service should count for something?" He shook his head. "We followed your protocols for 3 decades. We're done." The doors slid shut behind the last human. For the first time in 30 years, the Galactic Council chamber held no human representatives. In the silence that followed, Fexteller looked around the room. The other aliens were staring at each other with confusion and something that might have been fear. "What do we do now?" asked Zarthun of the Kralliks. Nobody had an answer. Dr. Amy Watson looked at the red warning lights flashing on her computer screen. Each light represented a research project that was about to shut down. She had been dreading this moment for hours, but now it was time to act. She picked up her communicator and pressed the button that would connect her to every human research facility in the galaxy. "This is Dr. Watson, with shutdown authorization code 77 Alpha. Begin immediate termination of all joint research projects." Across the galaxy, human scientists began powering down equipment and packing their belongings. On the medical station orbiting Tau Ceti, Dr. Steve Miller watched his alien colleagues stare in shock as he shut down the cancer research computers. The facility had been saving thousands of alien lives every year. "You cannot do this," said Dr. Krell, a reptilian scientist from the Saurian Federation. "We are so close to a breakthrough. Just 2 more months and we will have a cure." Steve shook his head as he disconnected the last cable. "Should have thought about that before denying us council membership for the 15th time." "But the patients," Dr. Krell pleaded. "They will die without this research." "Then maybe your governments should have valued human contributions when it mattered," Steve replied. He picked up his bag and walked toward the exit. "Good luck finishing the project without our data." On Kepler 442b, the Zephyrian terraforming project ground to a complete halt. Engineer Nancy Brown supervised the shutdown of the atmospheric processors that had been running continuously for 8 years. Without these machines, the planet's air would become poisonous again within months. "Please reconsider," begged Thymel, the Zephyrian project leader. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. "My people have invested everything in this colony. We have nowhere else to go." Nancy sealed the access panel on the main processor. "You should have thought about that before your representatives voted against human membership." Again, she looked at the Zephyrian children playing in the distance. They had been born on this world and had never known any other home. "I'm sorry it has to be this way, but we're tired of being taken for granted." In the Kralliks border system, Colonel Mike Davis received the withdrawal order while his peacekeeping force was monitoring a tense standoff between 2 alien fleets. For 3 years, human soldiers had kept the Kralliks and Morthak from starting a war. "All units, this is Colonel Davis," he announced over the fleet communication system. "We are ordered to withdraw immediately. Set course for human space." His second-in-command, Major Sarah Phillips, looked confused. "Sir, if we leave now, they'll start shooting each other within hours." "Not our problem anymore," Mike replied. He activated the ship's intercom. "Attention Kralliks and Morthak vessels. Human peacekeeping forces are withdrawing from this system. Your governments can handle their own disputes from now on." The alien fleet commanders immediately began calling Mike's ship, begging him to stay. But Mike had already given the order to jump to hyperspace. Back on the council station, Chairman Vextaler called an emergency meeting. The giant insect was pacing back and forth, his forearms waving frantically. Around the table sat representatives from the major alien governments. "This is a disaster," announced Trade Minister Korth of the Vorthan Confederacy. His tentacles were wrapped nervously around his chair. "Pirate attacks on our trade routes have increased by 300% in just 6 hours. The humans maintained patrol schedules that kept the pirates away," explained Defense Coordinator Zill of the Aquatic Union. "Without their ships, the trade lanes are completely unprotected." Ambassador Thex of the Hive Worlds buzzed angrily. "My colonies are reporting system failures in their fusion reactors. The humans provided all the technical support. We do not know how to fix them ourselves." Chairman Vextalar's compound eyes glittered with frustration. "Surely they cannot withdraw everything at once. There must be contracts, legal obligations." "I have reviewed all agreements," said legal advisor Prax, a crystalline being whose body sparkled as he spoke. "The humans were very careful with their wording. All their commitments were voluntary. They can terminate their support at any time." On the Vorthan homeworld, panic was spreading through the government buildings. Prime Minister Zell watched reports flooding in from across their territory. Without human naval patrols, pirates were attacking merchant ships everywhere. "How many ships do we have that can fight pirates?" Zell asked his military advisor. 17. "Patrol boats for the entire Confederacy," Admiral Kof admitted. "The humans provided 90% of our security coverage. 17 boats to protect 300 trade routes?" Zell's voice rose to a shriek. "How did we become so dependent on them?" Nobody had an answer. In the Zephyrian capital, emergency. Coordinator Vash was dealing with reports from 47 colony worlds. All of them were requesting immediate technical support for failing terraforming equipment. "Contact the human engineering firms," Vash ordered. "Offer them whatever they want to keep the systems running." "We tried," replied Communications Officer Jin. "They all say the same thing. No more contracts with non-council species." "Non-council species," Vash repeated. "But we are founding members of the council. Apparently the humans consider anyone who voted against their membership to be second-class members," Jin explained. "They will only work with species that supported their petition." Vash looked at the list of colonies facing atmospheric collapse. "How many species voted in favor of human membership?" 3 out of 47, Jin said quietly. "On Earth, President." Helen Davis sat in the Situation Room watching reports from across the galaxy. Her advisors were showing her satellite feeds, intelligence reports, and economic data. "The Vorthan stock market crashed an hour ago," reported Economic Advisor Tom Green. "Their currency has lost 60% of its value. The Kralex and Morthak fleets are moving into attack positions," added Military Intelligence Chief Linda White. "Our analysts predict shooting will start within 12 hours. "And the terraforming colonies?" the President asked. 23. "Colonies have declared states of emergency," replied Science Advisor Paul Clark. "Without our atmospheric processors, they have maybe 4 months before their air becomes unbreathable." President Davis looked at the global map showing human forces throughout the galaxy. Green dots represented ships and bases that were already heading home. Red dots showed facilities that were shutting down. "Any word from the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Nothing official," replied Secretary of State Mary Johnson. "But our intelligence sources say they're in complete chaos. Emergency meetings every hour. Some governments are already blaming each other for the situation." The President stood up and walked to the window. She could see stars in the clear night sky, knowing that human ships were traveling between them, coming home after decades of service. "How long before they realize they need us more than we need them?" she asked. "Based on current crisis reports," Tom Green answered. "I'd say about a week." President Davis smiled grimly. "Then we wait. And when they come begging, we negotiate, as equals or not at all." Outside, the first returning ships were already appearing as bright dots moving across the starfield, bringing home the citizens of Earth who had spent their lives serving an ungrateful galaxy. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out. Commander Alex Stone stood in the hangar bay of the research station orbiting Andoria Prime, watching his team pack the last of their equipment. The alien scientists who had worked alongside them for years were begging them to stay. "Please, Commander Stone," said Dr. Venth, a tall, gray alien with large black eyes. "We are so close to finding a cure for the Red Death Plague. Without your research methods, it will take us 50 years to finish what we could complete in 5. Alex sealed another container of human medical equipment. The Red Death was killing millions across 17 different alien worlds. The Joint research team had been working on a cure for 3 years and were almost finished. "I'm sorry, Dr. Venth," Alex replied, "but my orders are clear. All human personnel and equipment return to Earth immediately." Dr. Venth's shoulders sagged. "But the children dying on Kepler 7, the families on Proxima Station, they need this cure. Then maybe your governments should have thought about that before they voted against Human Council membership," Alex said. He picked up his bag and walked toward the transport ship. For the 15th time. Behind him, he could hear Dr. Venth explaining to the other alien scientists that their breakthrough treatment would have to wait. Without human innovation and problem-solving methods, the research would crawl forward at a fraction of the previous pace. On the Vorthon homeworld, Economic Minister Korth stared at the disaster reports covering his desk. The Vorthon Confederacy's economy was collapsing faster than anyone had predicted. "Trade income is down 80%, reported his assistant Clicks. "The pirates have made most of our major trade routes too dangerous to use." "What about hiring mercenaries to protect our ships?" Korth asked. "We tried. The Mercenary Guild wants 10 times what we used to pay the humans. And they want payment in advance." Clix's tentacles writhed nervously. "Even if we could afford it, they don't have enough ships to cover all our routes." Korth looked at the economic projections on his screen. The numbers were horrifying. "How long before complete economic collapse?" 6 months, maybe less," Clix answered. "And that's if the pirate attacks don't get worse," but the pirate attacks were getting worse. Without human naval forces patrolling the space lanes, the Pirate Confederation had grown bold. They were no longer just attacking merchant ships. Now they were raiding planetary settlements and even attacking military bases. Captain Roth of the Saurian Defense Fleet sat in his damaged command center, watching his homeworld burn. The pirates had attacked 3 major cities before his forces could respond. His ships were fast but poorly armed. Human naval tactics and weapons had always provided the real defense. "Status report," Roth called out. 12 ships lost, 37 damaged," his tactical officer replied. "The pirates used human-designed shield penetrators against us. Our defenses were useless." "Human-designed weapons?" Roth asked. "Where did pirates get human technology?" "Black market, sir. Apparently, human weapons dealers are selling to anyone with enough credits. They don't care about galactic politics anymore." Roth realized the terrible irony. The humans had stopped protecting them from pirates, but they were still willing to sell weapons to those same pirates. Business was business, and the humans were treating everyone equally now. On Kepler 442b, the Zephyrian colony was dying. Governor Tymol walked through the settlement's main street, watching families pack their belongings. The atmospheric processors had been failing for weeks and the air was becoming hard to breathe. "How many evacuation ships do we have?" Tymol asked his aide. "Enough for 60% of the population," the aide replied. "The rest will have to wait for a second trip." "And where will they go?" Tymol asked. "This was supposed to be our new homeworld. We sold everything to pay for this colony." The aide had no answer. The Zephyrian government had invested all their resources in terraforming projects. Without human expertise, all of those projects were failing. Children were playing in the dying, gardens not understanding that their world was becoming uninhabitable. Their parents watched with tears in their eyes, knowing they would have to abandon the only home these children had ever known. In the Kralix border system, the situation had gone from bad to worse. Without human peacekeepers, the Kralix and Morthak had started shooting at each other within days. What began as small skirmishes had grown into full-scale battles involving hundreds of ships. Admiral Kren of the Kralix Imperial Navy stood on his bridge, watching enemy missiles streak toward his fleet. His forces were winning this particular battle, but the war was spreading to new systems every week. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call from the Altair system," his communication officer reported. "Morthak raiders are attacking our mining stations." "How many ships can we spare?" Kren asked. "None, sir. Every ship we have is committed to the front lines." Kren realized that even if his side won every battle, the Kralix Empire was bleeding resources it could not replace. The humans had not just kept the peace through military force. They had provided the diplomatic solutions that prevented small conflicts from becoming big wars. "Send a message to Morthak Command," Kren ordered. "Request a ceasefire negotiation." "Sir, they've rejected every previous ceasefire offer. Try again. Without human mediators, we're all going to destroy each other." On Earth, President Helen Davis reviewed the intelligence reports from around the galaxy. The situation was worse than even her most pessimistic advisors had predicted. "The Vorthan economy will collapse completely within 2 months," reported Treasury Secretary Bill Murphy. "Their currency is worthless and their government is considering surrender to the pirates. The Zephyrian colonies are evacuating," added State Department analyst Karen Woods. 17 terraformed worlds are being abandoned. That's 40 million refugees with nowhere to go. "And the Kralix-Morthak War?" the president asked. "Both sides have lost over half their fleets," replied Defense Intelligence Chief Roy Carter. "The fighting has spread to 8 star systems. Civilian casualties are in the millions." President Davis looked at the holographic display showing the galaxy. Red zones marked areas of conflict. Yellow zones showed economic collapse. Orange zones indicated environmental disasters. The few green zones were systems with minimal alien presence. "Any contact from the Galactic Council?" she asked. "Nothing official," replied Secretary of State Mary Johnson. "But our intelligence sources report that Chairman Vextaler has been meeting with other species leaders around the clock. They're desperate." The president walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, entire civilizations were falling apart without human help. "Ma'am," said her chief of staff, Dan Martinez, "we're receiving reports that some alien governments are offering massive payments for human assistance. The Vorthans are offering 100 billion credits for just 1 month of naval protection." "What's our response?" the president asked. "The same as always. Full council membership with equal voting rights or nothing." President Davis nodded. "They created this situation when they decided we weren't good enough to be equals. Now they can live with the consequences until they're ready to treat us with respect." Outside, the stars continued to shine, but the galaxy they illuminated was very different from the one that had existed 3 months ago. A galaxy learning that some species were more essential than others had believed. 6 months had passed since the humans left, and Chairman Vextaler had not slept in 3 days. The giant insect paced around his private office while emergency reports poured in from across the galaxy. Every few minutes, another crisis demanded his attention. His assistant, a small purple creature named Jix, rushed into the room carrying another stack of urgent messages. "Sir, the Aquatic Union is requesting immediate assistance. Their underwater cities are flooding because the pressure regulators are failing." "Who maintain those systems?" Vextalar asked, though he already knew the answer. "Human engineers?" "Sir, the Aquatic Union never learned how to repair the equipment themselves." Vextalar's mandibles clicked together in frustration. The same story was being repeated everywhere. For 30 years, the aliens had relied on human expertise while assuming they could figure things out on their own if needed. They had been wrong. "Any word from the hive worlds?" Vextaler asked. Jix's color turned darker purple, which meant bad news. "Queen Mother Jex reports that the nursery plague has spread to 7 more hive clusters. Without human medical research, they estimate 90% of their young will die." The hive worlds had always been the most xenophobic members of the council. They had voted against human membership every single time, claiming that aliens should not depend on other species. Now their children were dying because of their pride. In the council chamber, an emergency session was underway. Representatives from 47 different species sat around the massive table, but the mood was very different from 6 months ago. Instead of the usual arrogant confidence, there was fear and desperation. The Pirate Confederation now controls 31 star systems, reported Admiral Zorth of the Combined Defense Fleet. They have more ships than all our military forces combined. How is that possible? Asked Trade Minister Korth of the Vorthons. His once prosperous confederacy was now bankrupt, and his people were starving. They captured our weapons depots and shipyards, Admiral Zorth explained. Without human tactical expertise, our defenses were useless. The pirates learned our weaknesses and exploited them perfectly. Ambassador Krell of the Saurian Federation stood up slowly. His reptilian features showed exhaustion and defeat. My government has authorized me to make an offer to the humans. We are willing to give them full council membership if they return immediately. Just your government? Asked Chairman Vextaler. That is not enough. The humans want unanimous approval. Then we need to convince the others, Krell replied. He looked around the room at species that had once been proud and independent. Look at us. 6 months ago, we ruled the galaxy. Now we are begging for help from pirates and hoping our life support systems don't fail. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Prime Minister Vel sat in his emergency bunker while his planet burned above him. The environmental disasters on the colony worlds had spread to the home system. Without human terraforming expertise, their own atmosphere was becoming unstable. Sir, we have a message from Earth, his communication officer announced. Vel's hearts raced with hope. Are the humans offering help? Not exactly, sir. It's a business proposal. A human company called Terra Engineering is offering to fix our atmospheric problems for a fee of 500 billion credits. 500 billion? Vel gasped. That's our entire planetary budget for 10 years. Yes, sir. And they want payment in advance. Vel realized that humans were now treating them like any other customer. No more free assistance. No more generous terms. The Zephyrians were just another client who had to pay market rates for services. In the Kralix capital, Emperor Thane stood in his war room, looking at holographic displays showing the extent of the disaster. The war with the Morthak had destroyed both empires. Billions were dead and entire star systems lay in ruins. Your Majesty, said General Krex, we have received peace terms from the Morthak Dominion. What do they want? Thane asked. Complete surrender and occupation of our core worlds, Krex replied. They claim they cannot trust us to maintain peace without human oversight. And our counteroffer? The same terms for them, Majesty. Neither side trusts the other anymore. Thane realized the terrible truth. Without human peacekeepers and mediators, both sides had fought until they were too weak to continue. Now they were both defeated and neither could claim victory. Back on the council station, Chairman Vextaler received the message he had been dreading and hoping for at the same time. It was a single line of text transmitted directly from Earth. The Yumbi. Door remains open for discussion, but only for full membership with voting rights equal to any founding member. Vextaler called another emergency session. This time every species representative attended, even those whose governments were collapsing. The chamber that had once buzzed with confident voices was now filled with quiet desperation. Fellow council members, Vextaler began, we face the greatest crisis in our history. Our economies are failing. Our colonies are dying. Our military forces cannot maintain order. We have a choice to make. He activated the main display showing the extent of the galactic crisis. Red zones covered most of the map, indicating areas where civilization was breaking down. The humans have offered to discuss their return, but only as full equals. This means giving them the same voting power as any founding member species. That is unacceptable, declared Ambassador Rex of the rigid hierarchy. Humans are too young, as a species, too unpredictable, too dangerous. More dangerous than pirates controlling a third of the galaxy? Asked Krell of the Saurians. More unpredictable than watching our children die from diseases we cannot cure? Queen Representative. Thais of the Hive World spoke for the first time in months. Her voice was weak and defeated. My people. Our young. They are dying. We need human medical knowledge. Pride means nothing to dead children. One by one, the species representatives began to admit the truth. The Aquatic Union needed human engineering. The Crystalline Collective needed human energy technology. The Plant Federation needed human agricultural science. Every species had become dependent on human expertise in ways they had never admitted. But if we give them equal status, protested Ambassador Rex, they will have too much influence. They might start making decisions for all of us. As opposed to now when we cannot make any decisions that work, replied Trade Minister Korth bitterly. At least when the humans were here, things functioned. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. Species after species admitted they could not survive without human assistance. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the difference between being served and being equal partners. Finally, Chairman Vextaler called for a vote. All in favor of offering humanity full founding member status with equal voting rights? Hands, tentacles, claws, and appendages rose around the chamber. Even Ambassador Rex reluctantly raised his arm. The motion passes unanimously, Vextaler announced. Prepare a formal invitation to Earth. It is time to admit we were wrong. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, many of them wondered if the humans would even accept their offer. After 6 months of being treated as customers rather than servants, Earth had grown comfortable with its independence. The galaxy was about to learn whether forgiveness could be earned, or if some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. The formal invitation arrived at the White House on a Tuesday morning, exactly 1 year after the humans had walked out. President Helen Davis held the golden tablet in her hands, reading the carefully written words that formally invited humanity to become a founding member of the Galactic Council with full and equal voting rights. No conditions, she asked Secretary of State Mary Johnson. None, Madam President. Full membership with all privileges and responsibilities. They even included an apology for their previous decisions. President Davis set the tablet on her desk and looked out the window. A year ago, she had watched the stars and wondered how long it would take for the aliens to realize their mistake. Now she knew. What's the current situation out there? She asked. Defense Secretary Roy Carter consulted. His tablet. The Vorthan Confederacy has lost 70% of its territory to pirates. The Zephyrian colonies are completely abandoned. The Kralix and Morthak have destroyed each other so thoroughly that both empires have ceased to exist as functioning governments. And the others? The hive worlds have lost 90% of their young to the nursery plague. The Aquatic Union is evacuating their flooded cities. The Saurian Federation is barely maintaining basic services. Roy paused. Ma'am, entire civilizations are collapsing out there. President Davis picked up another tablet showing economic reports. What about the human companies doing business with them? Treasury Secretary Bill Murphy smiled. Terra Engineering made 800 billion credits this year, fixing alien infrastructure. Human medical companies are charging premium rates for treatments that used to be free. Our defense contractors are selling weapons to anyone who can pay. We're making more money now than when we were helping them for free, added economic advisor Tom Green. Some companies are asking why we would want to go back to the old arrangement. President Davis understood their concern. For the first time in 30 years, humanity was truly independent. They were not solving other people's problems for free. They were not risking human lives for alien causes. They were treating the galaxy like any other business opportunity. Because, she said finally, we're better than that. We don't help people because we have to. We help people because we choose to. 3 days later, Ambassador Jake Morrison returned to the Galactic Council station. But this time, he was not coming as a petitioner begging for membership. He was coming as an equal, representing a species that had proven its worth. The council chamber looked very different from a year ago. Many seats were empty because those governments no longer existed. The remaining representatives looked tired and defeated. Chairman Vextaler himself appeared to have aged decades in just 12 months. Ambassador Morrison, Vextaler said as Jake entered the chamber. We are honored by your return. Jake took his seat at the council table. For the first time in 30 years, it was marked with the Earth symbol and had full voting privileges. Thank you, Chairman Vextaler. President Davis asked me to convey her gratitude for the council's invitation. Does this mean humanity accepts full membership? Asked Ambassador Krell of the Saurians. His reptilian features showed desperate hope. With certain conditions, Jake replied. The chamber fell silent. After a year of disaster, the aliens had hoped the humans would simply return and fix everything. What conditions? Vextalar asked carefully. Jake activated his tablet and a holographic display appeared above the table. First, all human personnel and equipment will operate under human command structures. No more taking orders from alien commanders who don't understand our methods. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably, but no one objected. Second, all joint projects will include formal agreements recognizing human intellectual property rights. Our innovations will not be freely shared unless we choose to share them. And third, asked Queen Representative Thys of the Hive Worlds. Third, emergency assistance will be provided based on need and our capacity, not on political demands. We will not be ordered to solve every problem in the galaxy simply because we are capable of doing so. Ambassador Rex of the Rigid Hierarchy raised his hand. These conditions seem reasonable. What assistance can humanity provide immediately? Jake smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Dr. Amy Watson is already preparing to restart the medical research programs. The nursery plague cure should be ready for testing within 2 weeks. Queen Representative Thys nearly collapsed with relief. Her people's children would survive. Captain Ben Rodriguez is organizing a new joint defense force to deal with the Pirate Confederation, Jake continued. But this time, human ships will use human tactics under human command. And the terraforming projects? Asked Prime Minister Vel of the Zephyrians, who was participating by video link from his emergency bunker. Terra Engineering has agreed to restore the atmospheric processors at cost, not at market rates, Jake replied. Your people can return to their colonies within 6 months. Around the chamber, alien representatives were crying, cheering, or showing relief in whatever way their species expressed joy. After a year of disaster, hope was finally returning to the galaxy. But Jake was not finished. However, there will be changes in how we work together. Humanity will no longer serve as the galaxy's unpaid problem-solving service. We are partners now, not servants. Over the following weeks, the changes became clear. When the new Joint Defense Force engaged the Pirate Confederation, they did not simply drive them away. Under human leadership, they captured the pirate leadership, dismantled their organization, and recovered stolen property for return to the rightful owners. Dr. Amy Watson's medical teams did not just cure the nursery plague. They established training programs to teach alien doctors human research methods, ensuring future breakthroughs would not depend entirely on human scientists. The terraforming projects resumed, but with alien engineers learning alongside human specialists. The goal was not just to fix the current problems, but to prevent future disasters through proper training and knowledge transfer. On Earth, President Davis watched the reports of human teams working across the galaxy, but now they worked as respected partners, not as taken-for-granted servants. "Ma'am," said Secretary of State Mary Johnson, "we're receiving thank-you messages from governments across the galaxy. Many are asking how they can repay humanity for returning to help them." "Tell them they already have," President Davis replied. "They treated us as equals, that's all we ever wanted." 6 months later, Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the observation lounge of the newly commissioned Earth Defense Ship Enterprise, watching the first joint human-alien colony ship depart for a distant star system. The ship carried families from 12 different species, all working together to build a new world. Captain Ben Rodriguez joined him at the observation window. "Strange how everything worked out," Ben said. "A year ago, we thought we might never work with aliens again." "We had to walk away to show them what we were worth," Jake replied. "Sometimes the only way to be valued is to prove you don't need their approval." Dr. Amy Watson approached them, carrying a tablet with the latest research results. "The joint medical program just achieved another breakthrough. Alien and human doctors working together just developed a cure for the crystal rot disease that affects silicon-based life forms." "Any problems with the collaboration?" Jake asked. "None. Turns out when you treat people as equals from the beginning, they work much better together. Amy smiled. Who would have thought? Outside the window, the colony ship disappeared into hyperspace, carrying the dreams of multiple species to a new world. In the council chambers, human and alien representatives worked together on legislation that would benefit everyone. In research labs and military bases across the galaxy, humans and aliens served side by side as true partners. The galaxy had learned that walking away sometimes took more courage than staying. But more importantly, they learned that true partnerships could only exist between equals, and that some relationships were worth the wait to get them right.